place without him if he didn't show up. I did. I just found that out.
All right, Jim, whenever you're ready, you are live and ready to go.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Henrietta Planning Board meeting on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. Members present: Matt Borkowski, Patricia Brill, Walter Liss, Craig Eckert, Steve McIntyre, Rick Page, town staff present, Chris Martin, Director of Planning and Engineering, Chris Hauser, Deputy Director of Planning and Engineering and Planning, Heather Voss, Deputy Town Clerk, and Planning Board Attorney Dan Mastrella. First item on the agenda this evening are the minutes from the May 18th, 2021 meeting. The chair will ask if there's any comments or questions on the minutes. And the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Page, thank you.
Second.
Mr. McIntyre has a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Mr. Chairman, do I have to abstain?
You may abstain, Mr. Eckert, if you wish.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I was here for the first public hearing portion, but I can't vote on it because I wasn't here for the entire.
Okay, thank you. So for the record, we have 5 yeas and 2 abstentions. Thank you. All right, second item on the agenda is application number 21-008, BMW of Rochester. This is a dealership expansion. We're here to discuss final site plan approval for 2 new building additions totaling 7,200 square feet to the existing building on 3.96 acres located at 4250 West Henrietta Road in the commercial B1 zone district. Who's here representing the applicant, please?
I am here, Bob Winans, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry. Bob?
Yeah, it's Bob Winans,
Can you spell that, please?
W-I-N-A-N-S.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, and I apologize. I am trying to get I'm having problems linking in with my computer, but I'm on my phone right now, so I'll do my best.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The floor is
And,
yours.
Okay, and also with me, I think, is Jim Malka, who's Director of Facility Operations for West Her Automotive Group, and possibly Garrett Steiner, who is another project manager with DDS. So, okay, so you had mentioned about our project, but we're requesting site plan approval for building additions to the existing building, the BMW of Rochester building that's on the southeast corner of Calkins Road and West Henrietta Road. You mentioned the building's on about just under 4 acres and the zoning is a B1 zoning. So there's one main entrance off of Calkins Road, which is a fairly wide, I think it was designed to be a two-way out and one way in. So it's about 35 feet wide. So it's a fairly large entrance. And then there's also a 25-foot wide cross access drive to the property to the south. So that's down in the southeast corner of the property. There's a cross access which goes into the property to the south, which then has an access out to West Henrietta Road. So let's start with the addition in the front of the building facing Calkins Road. It will encompass some of the existing entrance area that's just adjacent to the large glass area. So what it'll be about 1,600 square feet, and it will match the appearance of the existing glass facade with a storefront frame, and the framing's a clear anodized aluminum look. Okay, Heather's putting a plan on there. So, and that front entrance will actually enhance some of the customer service areas and the sales areas that are currently there. So just going to finish off some of those as customers come into the building on that side, and for the parts, and just even people coming in for the service area. But the main thing is that that it will be that glass matching the existing facade. And we do have elevations at some point coming in too, so they'll show you what it looks like. And then on the south side of the building, the addition will be about 5,600 square feet, which will attach onto this service and sales, well, service area. And then that will actually extend that service area out and provide new overhead doors for the vehicles and for the repair people when they're bringing vehicles out. So that exterior on that side of the building will just be a exterior insulation finishing system on top of the drive-it, but it'll be a white color, which will match the rest of the building. So it should all blend right in, and there will be, not even any sign that the addition was put on there. So we also, as part of that addition in the rear on the south side, since that corner gets a little bit tight in there where the access easement is to the other property, we're going to remove that existing curbed island and remove that and pave it, and then eliminate about 3 spaces and stripe that area off so that it will allow for better access for cars coming down the access drive, turning left, and also for vehicles, and especially fire vehicles or any larger trucks that need to get around that corner. This will open up that whole area and provide, over 30 feet of drive area as vehicles come around through there. In addition, we will be, I guess I should mention on the front of the front addition, we will also be adding some landscaping and just a planting area with low shrubs, maybe some low level arborvitaes and different things in the front to match the existing landscaping. Obviously, since it's just an addition off the building, we will utilize the existing sanitary sewer lateral that's already connected to the building, and we'll be adding an updated oil separator to meet building code. The overall drainage patterns will be maintained on the site to the existing catch basins and open channel that runs along the east side of the property. And due to the fact that we're just building the additions onto asphalt impervious area, there will not be any increased impervious area. And we don't anticipate any increased storm runoff from the project because of that. And really the disturbed area will just be the outside edge of where we cut into the asphalt to, construct the building, and the one area with where we're taking out the curbed island. So it'll be about, and I have received the Monroe County Planning comments and town staff comments, and I don't see any issues with us addressing those prior to final sign off. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Bob. And we do have the building materials here, so thank you for dropping those off, so we had a chance to take a look at those.
Oh, good. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll open it up to the board. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill. Would you like to go first?
Thank you. I have a question for the dealership itself regarding the.
Patty, we can't hear you very well. Can you move your microphone a bit closer? Thank you.
Sorry about that. That's the first time I've ever had anybody tell me they couldn't hear me.
Me too.
Okay. No, it's too loud. I just had a question about the loading and unloading of vehicles on West Henrietta Road. I had worked for many years in the building directly behind the existing showroom. And I remember when they came to us to build across the street, we had a discussion with them about our concern about loading and unloading vehicles on West Henrietta Road. And we were assured it wouldn't happen. And I was surprised when I saw this on the general comments, because I've seen it myself many times where there is a tractor trailer unloading vehicles. And I recall my main concern being the employees walking across West Henrietta Road to the new facility. So I just wanted to make a comment about the loading and unloading right in the middle of West Henrietta Road. I just remember that conversation so specifically when it came last time. You know, I had concerns about, not concerns, I was curious about the colors and everything matching the building, and we did see that. So that's really the only question and comment I want to kind of focus in on at this time.
Yeah, hi, good evening. This is Jim Malta. I'm the Director of Facilities with West Her. And that is a concern. We've heard it multiple times. We are certainly taking steps to address that. One of the big challenges is that, you know, the drivers of the tractor trailers come and drop off and just do whatsoever most convenient for them. We do stress on them to come onto the property to do so. So we are addressing that in a couple ways. Certainly with the, you know, the plans, we are, you know, making sure that it's possible for them to come on site, as well as, you know, we're in current negotiations to get some additional property in the nearby area to take deliveries, which will make it a little easier for that as well. But, you know, we always instruct our drivers, you know, to offload on site. Unfortunately, sometimes they just show up and park and then just start taking cars off and putting them in the lot. So it is something we are addressing, and we will do our best to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Is there ability for the trucks to pull in there and do a loop around? Seems like there's plenty of room for that in the back.
There is. And I think the guys from DDS, I think you were going to show that on the drawings.
Thank you.
To show that there is proper access for that, and that would be the, you know, the preferred method for us as well.
And are
Hi,
there-
I'm Garrett Steiner, project engineer with DDS. We've done some auto turn simulations, and we found using the largest truck that we could that they will be able to fit around the entire site.
I can't hear you at all. Can you guys? You can?
Oh, you can't hear
Can
me?
you turn up your mic a little bit? Because it is hard to hear you, but I did.
Or get closer or something?
I believe what you said was that you did the turn analysis and it can accommodate these large carriers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess the issue is that we've got to make sure that the drivers know that.
Yes.
And then my question back to West Her would be, you mentioned you have talked to the drivers. Are they given this information prior to deliveries? Is it on their manifest? How is that information conveyed to them? Because we want to make sure it's happened proactively.
Certainly. And, you know, we don't have, you know, it's not like we have scheduled drivers that come each time. It's, you know, whoever gets the shipment and brings them to us. It is, you know, explicitly communicated to the, you know, to the brands that they are to be shipping to us on site. So we can certainly readdress it with, you know, the companies, but, you know, like I said, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, the path of least resistance is what they take. So we
Recording in progress.
So it is something that we are trying to correct on our own, and we will, you know, be reinstilling that specifically in this case with BMW, that their delivery methods need to be, you know, to an on-site location.
And we can be assured that that's going to be addressed to mitigate that as much as possible?
I will do everything in my ability. Again, I don't like it. It's a bad situation for everybody involved. You know, the employees, you know, the vehicles. So it's not something that we would encourage either. So certainly, I can assure you that I will address that with everybody on the sales team at BMW to make sure that it is conveyed that these need to be happening. And if they see it, they need to, talk to the driver and have them come into the lot.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'll sit down.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just to piggyback on Mrs. Brill's questions, can I ask, I don't know the logistics of your company, but can you tell me what is like the standard deviation of when you've got a carrier coming to your company? Do you know that it's going to be there within, an hour, within 5 hours, within a day?
Pretty much just a day.
Okay. I guess what I was hoping for is that this was in a couple hours and you could have somebody literally watching out there to see this truck pull up and say, keep going, get in the parking lot. I know that if it's a full day, hiring a person to be looking out is not really realistic. Maybe if you can get a smaller window of delivery time from your providers, that might be more feasible. So I don't know, but I'm looking to get people off West Henrietta Road. That was one of mine, which you touched on. Also, in the sanitary sewer, you mentioned, well, these are just additions, so it's not really that big of a deal, but in the engineer's notes, it says it's a major concern regarding the capacity of the existing extension 37 sanitary sewer. Do you agree with that?
I think what Chris Martin, the town engineer, was referring to is downstream. They're having problems with the sanitary sewer system. So they've started setting up a system to collect funds from users upstream to correct the problem downstream. And I guess what I was saying is we're not increasing the size of our sanitary lateral. We're not dramatically increasing the runoff or usage that's going into that sanitary sewer. But from what I understand from Chris, and I think we ran into this on another project, was down farther. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but there are some issues with the sewer being, over capacity. So I just meant that we aren't going to, but I realized that Chris, I've talked to Chris about it, and that there will be a fee involved with us connecting to it or doing this improvement as they've been doing to other users as people come into the town for site plans and such. So then that's to correct a downstream problem, is my understanding.
Is that correct? This is more of a subsidy for fixing kind of like a cumulative problem?
Yeah, that's correct. And the short story is back in the late or mid 90s, the health department wouldn't allow a lot of these newer projects along West Henrietta Road unless the town made some repairs to the sanitary sewer system to get more capacity. So in the last, since 1998, when the town resolution was passed, there's a fee schedule based on square footage and then, the cost per square footage depending on use. For example, a car wash or a higher water user had a $2 per square foot fee, whereas maybe like a apartment complex had 25 cents per square foot. So over the last, 13 years, we've been collecting these fees, or 23 years rather, but we've been using them on projects. So what we're trying to do is to get a fund balance. So when we get a certain amount, we can go ahead and make these improvements and not put any, stress on the system, so to speak.
Are you amicable with the agreement with this applicant?
Yeah, absolutely. What we'll do is after this meeting, we'll send a letter out to the applicant based on the square footage, what this fee is going to be and
Very
how
good.
we break it off or break it up rather.
And two other questions, both relating to the changes you're making. One, is the snow storage in the winter going to be any different than it currently is? And if so, do you have a location for that?
No, we don't anticipate any changes in snow storage and or plowing or anything like that at
Beautiful.
all.
And the last one is lighting. Same question. With these changes, is there going to be any different spillage? Is there going to be different colors? If it's going to be a different color, well, we don't want different colors. We want to make sure everything's universal. Is that going to be the case?
Yeah, no, there's no additional light poles or anything else included. I'm sure there'll be some light spill from the buildings, right around the buildings themselves, but we'll work towards being night sky, compliant. So obviously we will not increase any lighting from the site. Not that I anticipate. Nothing new planned.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Chair would just like to take a moment and recognize, is it Town Board Member Barley? Is that you back there, sir? Welcome. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I'm new at reading site plans, and I'm looking at the general notes, and on this site plan that I see, I don't see the indication of the car carrier loading and unloading vehicle area on mine. Is it somewhere that I'm missing? I mean, the other two board members have brought this issue up, and that's a concern.
No. So I can answer that for you, Bob. So I don't think the drawings that we have are certainly, these were submitted with the site plan package, Walter.
Okay.
So they probably don't show or address the comments that I have.
Oh,
So I
all
think
right.
the newer drawings that we're going to see in the future will have that location on
Don't have
there
that.
so that, we have something documented of where they're going to be loaded and unloaded.
All right. That's really the biggest issue that I have was the car, the car unloading and loading and unloading. Other than that, I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Liss. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I'm going to piggyback on the parking and unloading, being that I'm the one that usually sees it. Not only is there unloading on West Henrietta Road, there's unloading on Calkins Road. And then this property also owns the property across the street on the west side of West Henrietta Road. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Jim, can you answer that?
They do.
Sorry, I was muted there. Which property are you referring to?
On the west side of West Henrietta Road, there is a dollop shop or parking area that is also owned by the same group.
I have to apologize that I am only been here a few months, so I'm
Yeah, that
coming
is,
up to speed, but I'm pretty certain that is our property as well.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
yes, definitely. That's the over storage and the dollop shop
Okay.
next to the apartments for the hearing impaired.
Well, south of it, yeah, but the parking lot, I wanted to make sure was theirs.
Okay.
So from the facilities director, I was hoping to know that that was their property. The unloading and loading, not only is that an issue, it is the car haulers that are backing into that property. So the car haulers now are pulling out, crossing West Henrietta traffic completely and backing into that location. Is that something that you're not familiar that that's your property? So I guess I'm asking a muted question as to if that's an authorized use. If it is, it shouldn't be.
I'm sure.
Car storage in that location or offloading?
I'm sorry, say again?
So you're asking if it's unauthorized use for that property to accept the offloading of cars?
Yeah, is it authorized that they're allowed to back in from West Henrietta into that property?
So, again, I mean, from my standpoint, our requests and requirements to the shipping companies are always to do it on site. And we are directing them to do them on the BMW site. DDS will present the drawings to show that that it does fit, and that will be the direction moving forward. But likewise, at the same time, we are looking, I mean, currently we have 2 bids in on properties nearby that will probably require a special use permit as well, that we're hoping to help mitigate that whole issue altogether.
Okay, so I can understand that, and that's probably a good progress moving forward. But until those special use permits are granted, we're looking at this being the only site. We've had a lot of problems over the last year, and I'm also understanding that this was addressed during planning board last time when this building went in, that the deliveries were shown as to be on site. And now we have deliveries off-site, both locations, and backing in. This is one of our most problematic areas. So that's why it's come up with 3 or 4 people, and that's why it's come up in the comments. And I'm the one that usually gets called out and witnessed, and I'm the one that gets yelled at by the drivers when they tell me to go wherever. So I would suggest not accepting the deliveries. I would suggest not or having more somebody out there to take a look at this. The town is anticipating potentially putting in a fine for those that are going to park out on this road in the center island.
Completely understand. Again, as I've said earlier, it's not something we like either. So I will address, I was not aware that they were backing into that other site. I can check back with our general manager there and discuss that with him. But yes, they are supposed to be coming onto this site, the BMW site, to do so.
Okay, well, I can understand where they may not be having the ability to by looking at satellite imagery. I don't know where there's any place for them to go. So that's going to get me down to my next question on parking spaces. And there are 18 or 20 spaces being removed. I counted 18, but I think somebody said 20.
It's in that ballpark.
Bob, do you know how many spaces are being removed?
I do not have the exact number in front of me.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to ballpark 18. That's what I counted. Okay. Now we're showcasing 18 spaces that are going to be removed from this parking lot that's already overcrowded. And we're showcasing on the site plan an additional parking spaces, but those parking spaces are already being used and they have been for about a year.
Yeah, so that is, we did receive permission to place new car storage at the mall property. We have a 1-year term to do so. So, and again, we are taking the steps to mitigate that further past that 1 year with other properties, so that we can keep the car storage offsite.
Okay, I understand that, but what you're trying to showcase in the site plan is you are creating new places to offset the ones that are being removed. In a sense, you really aren't. You're already using them.
Well, and I think that's the point is right now, the parking spaces meet code and they meet the number that they should have on site, but because of the large number of extra cars they have now, they're like double parked and, you know, they really have a lot of cars stored on there. So the point is they will, you know, move those cars off site and, you know, we just, you know, try to clean up the area so there's more access routes and everything around the new building. So, I mean, that's the point is even though we're eliminating parking spaces right now, they're just overwhelmed with cars. If you ever drive through there, it's, you know, just everything's double parked. And I think they just need to address that and that'll take care of it. And really the entrance
I guess
off.
that goes back to my original concern, which is what everybody else has stated. If there isn't a place for the call haulers to pull in and unload, that's what's stopping them from doing so. So it's the parking on, it's the attributes of parking on the lot that are what's stopping the car haulers from pulling in.
Right, but the reason we're proposing those new stripes is to give structure to where the cars are actually being parked and to ensure that there's a 24 to 26 foot drive aisle for the trucks. If we didn't propose those new spots and they just were parking the cars randomly in those areas, then there was a higher possibility that the truck isn't going to be able to flow through there. But if we have those structured spots, the truck should always have that drive aisle to make it around.
Okay, and I understand that, but again, I'm going by a satellite image that shows the cars that are still parking there, and they're still parking up and down the ramps, and they're still parking all over in the drive aisles. And I'm just going by a satellite image of what I can see between 2021 and 2020. And the striping isn't going to stop them from parking where they're already parking. You know, they're going to park where they want to park. That's what they're doing now.
Well, right. But the point is that the space is there for the trucks to pull in if the cars were removed from the double parking and over parking and everything else. And I just like to point out that the entrance off of Hawkins Road is a 35-foot wide entrance. And if you come into the site, there's probably a 60-foot wide by 60-foot deep open area that is intentionally, there are no cars parked there now. There's no parking spaces, but just so a large truck could pull in there at that point. You know, I was there today and that was all wide open. And, you know, obviously, as long as everything is kept clear around the outside and the other parking spaces, the trucks can pull in there easily and then maneuver around the site. So I think it's what Jim has pointed out, that they're looking for places to put the extra cars and everything. So it really doesn't matter that we're adding, you know, eliminating spaces or adding more spaces. They just need to clear the drive aisles out. So, but there is an extra large area in the opening there, you know, where it comes in off of Calkins.
Okay, so we're going to see an auto turn on an updated plan showcasing the ability for the trucks to turn in, around, and out.
Yes.
The other comments I had were kind of came off the conservation board. And I'm not sure I understood the comments completely. Were they requesting a lighting and landscaping plan?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so was that a comment that you heard from the conservation board?
My understanding was they weren't requiring, they talked about it, somebody asked a question, but my understanding was that they didn't need it once they realized that, you know, we weren't adding additional lighting. And I believe the chairman brought up the fact that all we were doing was doing minimal planning along the front of the building. It would be just building plantings, which didn't need a, you know, we could provide planning lists, but we didn't need a full-blown landscape plan because it's very minimal. So that was, I mean, I'd have to see the actual letter, but that was what I heard at the meeting. I was at the meeting when we got approval.
Okay. Well, again, I could be reading this. I'll let Chris figure that out. But the HCB recommends adding landscaping plans for the protection of the client. That's the first comment on there.
Okay. Yeah. And that's fine. If that's what staff wants, we can comply with that.
Okay. Well, I guess, you know, between that and then you're not anticipating any lighting, but I guess as in a final site plan, I was, I guess, kind of thinking that we would know or not by now if it was final. Do we have final site plans? Are we at enough of a progression in these plans to be able to view them as final?
Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. You know, it's not uncommon sometimes to get site plans in that don't have the full landscape or the full lighting in. It's something that we could certainly review administratively. As far as the lighting is concerned, I think as Bob mentioned, that the pole mounted lights are probably going to remain. The only thing I'm, you know, concerned about is the building mounted lights to make sure they're the right type of fixture. But again, I think this is something that we could review administratively if that's okay with the board.
And I'm okay with that. It just seems like, again, with the site, the erosion control, the lighting, the landscaping, a lot of these things that are being asked to add to the plans, I just wasn't sure how far along preliminarily they were. So if you're on top of that, then I guess we're comforted. Good. Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all the comments that I have. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Chair will recognize Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Jim, are you still on?
I am here, yes.
Okay. I don't want to keep harping on this issue about the parking on West Henrietta Road, but I want you to make sure that all of us on the board here are deeply concerned about what's going on there. It's dangerous. Somebody's going to get hurt. We've been lucky so far, but it's got to stop. Now, my preference would be that you would send a letter to the town indicating concrete steps that you're going to take to eliminate this problem. For example, having somebody that can officially be a greeter for this. A letter, do you use the same shipping company every time?
So the shipping is coming from, in this case, BMW. We don't get to necessarily pick that. So it is, you know, again, who they are contracted with to deliver. So I will, I do agree with drafting a letter. Certainly, I will share a letter with the BMW dealership and we'll review steps. We'll set some protocols in place for taking these deliveries. And I can share that with the board on those protocols that we'll establish.
I would also suggest maybe a sign on or near the entrance that the drivers would be able to see that more or less says it's forbidden to stage your load or unload cars in this location. Your letter should also identify where the staging area is going to be. I don't think we have that really locked down right now. Then with the letter to a shipping company to tell them that we're no longer going to be allowing loading and unloading on West Henrietta Road. And also you're going to designate an official greeter or a receiver that'll be there that can, if it, for some reason, the driver misses all of these, he can make sure that the driver comes on site instead of trying to do it right on West Henrietta Road. That's my suggestion. I appreciate the fact that you're doing your best to try to stop this problem, but I think based on the fact that we went through this the last time, that we really need to see some sort of concrete steps.
Completely understand. We will be taking appropriate actions. I will say, having an official greeter is, always challenging, not knowing when they're coming, and but it should be the responsibility of the general manager to be aware of what's going on in and around his site. So we'll work on set up those protocols and find a good way to establish, if somebody sees it, they need to stop them and bring them on site.
Okay. My second question was for Bob. You still on, Bob?
Yes.
I think you briefly touched on this right during your narrative where you were talking about the area next to the 5,600 square foot addition. There's a 24-foot gap there, and the fire marshal wants 26. How are you handling that? I know you've got the striped out area, but my plans showed the 3 parking spaces next to the striped out area will make it impossible for the truck to have that 26 feet if the cars are parked there.
Yeah, well, we're showing 24 feet at the striped out area. So obviously that area could be easily, there's no cars parked there. So it does provide the 26 feet from the building because of the striped out area. And then let me just check the distance. Yeah. So, if it doesn't work, we'll have to eliminate another parking space and extend that striped area out and provide 26 feet. That's easily done.
The only way I see you be able to do it is to eliminate like 3 parking spaces so you can reduce that curve a little bit. Pick up a few more feet.
All we have to do is provide the extra 2 feet into the striped area. And then, as you head westerly, there's a wider difference between the building and the parking spaces. So,
Yeah, you got those parking spaces.
by the time you get to the second space, it's the end of the second space there, it's like 30 feet to the building.
So you'd have to lose 1 parking space.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. There'll be a transition area in there that you would probably lose 1 space.
Can you just extend out the striping area to take over that 1 parking space?
Yep, we pull in the striped area by 2 feet to give it 26 and are extended out there. I think the fire marshal really, as long as he's got a hard surface that there aren't cars in the way, that he's okay. So he probably would be even okay with the striped area, because we've got over 32 feet from the building to the edge of the pavement in there. And we just striped it out to make sure there wouldn't be any cars in there to maintain the 24 or better. So we just got to make sure that, if there was a car parked in that one space, that it doesn't impede on that 26, I guess. We can recheck that.
I would assume that since they have such a parking issue around the site here, that if there's a parking space open, somebody will be using it.
Yeah, well, they can't park in the fire lane. So that's the
Mr.
rule.
Chairman, can I request after Mr. McIntyre's comment that they add the fire turn analysis to the turn analysis that they're doing for the unloading of the vehicles? They can do a fire truck turn onto that auto turn. Chris,
It's in my comments, Mr.
Yeah, I've got it in
Becker.
the comments.
they can add that to the auto turn?
Yes, that's,
Okay, great.
Will the additional additions to the building require any changes to the existing oil separator?
Yeah, that's what I had mentioned. That's what we're going to look at, because probably the new building will be built over top of the existing oil separator. So as we expand out, I anticipate us putting a new oil separator in.
Okay.
I don't see the existing one being saved.
Chris, do you have the calculations on that?
we probably had, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning, so we probably have the calculations for the first one, but not anything updated yet. So I'm sure Bob will give those to me and we'll review those prior to signing off on the drawings.
Okay, Bob, you can provide the calculations to Chris so he can.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
The last comment I have is regarding drainage and grading. And it says some type of green infrastructure practice should be provided due to the expansion of the building. We don't have a landscape plan, so I don't know if you were proposing anything. And I don't know if you mentioned it in your comments, but did you have any kind of a infrastructure practice that you were going to utilize?
No, I guess I was going to talk to Chris a little bit farther on that and just see what our options were, whether we needed to create, possibly in that striped area to make it a grassed area instead. That's a possibility. Or is it possible to drain some of the roof drains into a landscaped area or something like that? I mean, there aren't a lot of options on an existing site like this. And so, that's about the best we can do probably, is do some curbed islands and do some, vegetated areas in there to help that. So I'll work with Chris on that and his staff.
Comment says should be.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's no increase in impervious area on the site, but with a lot of these building additions, we always try to get a little, green infrastructure or something there, or, like Bob said, maybe it's a landscaped island that they could utilize. Something just to get a little more greenery and, take care of some of the stormwater runoff.
Okay.
But we'll work together on that.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Chair will recognize Mr. Page.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My teammates have gone over most of the issues that I had. As far as unloading in the road, we don't mean to beat you up on that. They're doing it all the way down. Everybody's unloading in the road. You're not the only one. Craig, you seem to be on top of that. Have we networked with Zone B? Is it illegal to unload in that turning lane? And if you don't know the answer, I'm going to meet with the Zone B captain, and if it is, then I'm going to ask. I'll put it out in social media that when you see that, either the town employees or us, you need to call 911 if it's illegal. I don't know that it is.
It is in my conversations with the undersheriff and the sheriff, it is a hard ticket for them to write.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of.
There has to be a documented area that's safe for them to pull into. And a lot of these larger dealerships have that area, but some of the smaller ones don't.
Okay.
So I think it's unclear for them, and I have to go back to Spo's conversation from last year. So I'm kind of going off memory, so excuse me on some of this. It's going to be a little gray.
Okay.
But we worked with them on it, and it wasn't a black and white issue. So
I tell you, if I owned that dealership, if there's an accident there, the attorneys are going to come for the deepest pockets, and it's not going to be the guy driving that truck. So it is a dangerous situation. And again, I know the drivers do what they want to do. I know how difficult it is, but I was hoping that it was something they could write.
the conversation is where with the sheriff's department based off of creating a code that we could ticket ourselves.
So that makes a lot of sense.
So that's
Okay.
what I was referring to kind of, and I think in my
Okay.
comment I was trying
That's
to.
excellent.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned there was a loss of, you thought 18 parking spaces. But if you look at the fire marshal's comments, he wants no parking, and he's got, in red, he's got several parking spaces where he wants no parking signs. And for the turn radius. And I saw a GPS map that Matt has on his computer. There are cars parked solid from the striped area all the way up to the building. You couldn't get a pickup truck through there, just about. So that's going to be an issue. I want to make sure the fire marshal is completely happy. Our biggest fire apparatus is almost as big as the haulers. So I want to make sure that our fire marshal is happy with the way the turning radius is. Other than that, I think everybody's covered everything else. It's not, Chris, it's not typical for a cement washout area to be, that's a temporary during construction, so it doesn't really become part of the oil separator process, does it?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Page. It's a temporary, so when they pour the footers or the walls, they have a place that they can discharge the excess concrete to.
Yeah. I think that's all I had. Everybody else mentioned the ones that I had. So I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Borkowski.
I have a couple questions. Mr. Mistrella, is it possible for us to, if we go forward with an approval on this, which I don't know where people are sitting, but if we did that, could we make it conditional that they had to submit a written plan on fixing this carrier unloading?
Yes, to the degree that the proposed expansion could further, cause further problems. It's certainly within the purview of the board. I mean, my suggestion is that you be satisfied with, every one of you has had an issue with it, that you be satisfied with the solution before you issue an approval.
Well, and the reason I'm asking that, and I'm not putting words in Mr. Eckert's mouth, but it seems to me what he was implying, we got an answer that we've been, that BMW has been trying to get the truckers to do the right thing. But then when Mr. Eckert brought up the satellite issue, there's no way the trucks can get in there, at least what I'm looking. I know you're going to hopefully alleviate that with the parking at the mall. That is not currently the case. Don't know how old this satellite is, but in both entryways, there is no way to get a truck in there. So I'll tell you what, if I was a trucker, I would be trying the same thing because there's no way I'm getting my truck in there. So the reason I'm bringing that up is it seems like you guys are passing the buck a little bit because you're saying it's the truckers, but the truckers are probably a little bit apprehensive to even try because you're not giving them the space to do it. Therefore, if we made this conditional on a written plan for this and it goes to Chris Martin and he says that is good and we talk about this administratively, I mentioned earlier having a receiver. Mr. McIntyre mentioned a greeter, same thing really. I also know that that's not necessarily cost effective for one person to do that. Could be a person that's there all day anyway. Maybe the solution would be, this is 2021. I'm sure a trucker could contact the dealership about 30 minutes before they're there and somebody knows to expect them. So maybe that would be the thing that you put in your written plan that goes to Chris Martin if we go that route with approval. But I'm just trying to spitball some ideas that makes it a little cost effective to you. And there's no more of this apparent passing the buck, who's who. Doesn't matter, take care of it. That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski.
Jim, can I don't want to beleaguer this, but I just had a thought.
Yes, Mrs. Bro.
So Jim, I'm not sure how familiar you are being in facilities as far as, I had mentioned something before about the trucking manifest. So with any major delivery, you have a shipping document that has the ship to, the bill to, whatever the case may be. And there's always the address, the attention line, the address line to, and detailed note options. I'm just wondering if it's coming from BMW, it would seem that that's kind of a default field, if you will, that's filled in, that's going to be on every single trucking manifest that arrives at the location. That's certainly something to look into and consider, because if there's driver's notes on there that can point them to exactly where they need to drive or whom to call, I think that would be helpful, something to consider.
Certainly, I will look into those manifests and get copies of them and see how they're generated and see if there's something that we can add to that, certainly.
Thank you, Mrs. Burrow. And Jim, I just want to mention, you're probably familiar with this, but West Henrietta Road is one of the busiest roads in this town. And to have those trucks parked right in the middle, obviously it's a problem. There's a large hill coming from the south, and somebody's flying over that. Suddenly they're seeing a truck there. It's a little alarming sometimes. So that's why there's so much concern on this board with that out there. So I think you've gotten some good feedback from the board members this evening, and certainly some ideas that you can generate to mitigate this issue. Any other comments from the board or from Mr. Mistrella or Mr. Martin? Mr. Mistrella? Yes. No? Oh, thank you.
The only
Mr. Martin?
comment I have, and Mr. McIntyre actually brought this up, and I thought it was a great idea, but to have internal signage to when these trucks do come in, show them to where this place is going to be, where you're going to load and unload. So maybe some internal signage, and then with the plan you're going to put together, if you could have a contact person that we can call if there is an issue, that would be great. Other than that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would say is seeker.
And make that part of the letter, right? Signage?
Right, yeah, internal signage that would direct, from West Henrietta Road or Calkins Road to whether it's loading or unloading is going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, we'll move into seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment, and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by West Her Corporation. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval for 2 new building additions totaling 7,200 square feet to the existing building on 3.96 acres located at 4250 West Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a significant or a sufficient second?
Second.
Mr. Eckert?
Yep.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have seeker. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I
Borkowski.
will make a motion to approve 21008 conditional on an administrative approval of a car carrier traffic plan. Is that a decent term, Chris? Car carrier traffic plan?
Transport vehicle maybe, or additional.
Okay. So the wording would be a motion to approve conditional on administrative approval of a car carrier traffic plan.
And what about fire
A
equipment?
written car carrier traffic plan.
Fire equipment too?
I believe that would count in this. So we got fire equipment, we have signage. And that the fact that you're not going to have those cars where they are.
Action plan.
So once again, put as much as you can in the written item that goes administratively. And if there's something not there, we can make you redo it.
Very good. Mrs. Brillo, have you gotten that?
I do think.
Okay, good. Yep. Do we have a sufficient second?
Second.
Mr. List, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have a condition approval for the motion. Jim, any questions before you leave?
I do not. I just want to thank the board for your time tonight and your consideration.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Jim, thanks for showing up and getting beat over the brow a little bit, being that you've been there only a couple of months. Thank you for listening.
At any time. It's something we want to correct as well, so I appreciate the concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And good night.
Good night. Okay, next item on our agenda. It's a discussion item, York subdivision. We are to discuss revisions made for a proposed residential subdivision on 1.87 acres of property located on Jefferson Road in R120 zoned district. The original proposal was for 4 single-family homes. The new proposal is to utilize Town Law 278 for 2 duplex townhome buildings, with each townhome being on its own lot. Okay, so it's discussion only. Who's here representing the applicant, please?
I am Matt Newcomb with Pastoral Associates.
Thank you. Do you want to briefly review your changes since the last time?
Sure. Can do you guys mind if I share my screen?
Nope, that's fine.
Perfect. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So the previous proposal, as you mentioned, included 4 single-family lots. If you can see my mouse on here, the 4 single-family lots took up the entire parcel. What we're proposing here, after meeting with town staff, we came up with the idea of utilizing Town Law 278, which allows you to do the same number of units and decrease the development area, which it sounded like the feedback from a lot of the residents that they enjoyed the buffering. Although it wasn't allowed and approved or an allowed use, the single family homes, that they would like to see some buffering maintained. And then the town had talked a little bit more about a stormwater management facility or something to manage the minimal stormwater runoff from the project. So in order to incorporate both that and a fire truck turnaround, and also include some more and additional buffering, we are proposing 2 duplex style townhouses, single-story townhouses, which maintain a lot of the buffering around the outside, stormwater management facility, and the fire truck turnaround. We have not made an application to the town board for this yet. One of the reasons why we're coming before this board this evening is to get some feedback, because obviously if this board is not in favor of this option, it doesn't really make sense to go through the Town Law 278 process. So without further ado, I will open it up to any questions you guys might have.
Okay, thank you very much. The chair will recognize Mr. Page. Do you have any questions or comments, sir?
I see on the drawing that the scale is 1 inch is 30 feet. So the fire truck turnaround you're talking about is actually not a turnaround, but would be a backup situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the turnaround that we have here is you drive down the road and then you back into the turnaround and you pull back out. So that's what is required by the fire code. So what we do is we take the turnarounds that are available within the fire code and we construct them as they are required, shown on the appendix D of the fire code.
Okay. And you feel that that's large enough for our largest piece of equipment, correct?
Yes, 100%. That's typically what is required, I would assume, across the town of Henrietta for a fire truck turnaround.
Okay. I like this model a lot better than the 4 houses. I think you've done a great job of addressing the concerns that we had at the last meeting, and I thank you for that. We did get some feedback from neighbor residents. They seemed to be pleased as well. David, as far as I can tell, they've addressed what we were concerned about. I'm fine.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Chair will recognize Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
What was the reduction in the amount of the impervious area? I assume we reduced it down a bit.
So it will reduce slightly. It's not a significant reduction. This road length is 350 feet, roughly. The other roadway was about 390 feet. But this one also includes a fire truck turnaround, which is required. So it's not really a significant reduction in impervious area. It is a significant reduction in the development area, meaning, you know, we're able to keep a lot more of the trees and provide a stormwater management area. So the fire truck turnaround kind of makes it kind of a negligible increase or decrease rather.
And from what I recall on the last go round, I think the drainage tended to go from the north down to the southeast. We didn't have a utility plan to go by. How do you plan on directing the water into the storm pond?
So we haven't developed that yet. Again, this was more of a conceptual design or layout to kind of show our intent to really kind of see, you know, what kind of feedback we had going towards the town law 278. So we haven't designed this yet. We will certainly come in with a design, but the way I would like to do it is hopefully with an open swale rather than a closed storm system. But if we have the need or we're required somewhere where we need a storm structure or storm piping, we'll certainly propose that to make sure the stormwater gets down to the stormwater management area.
I'd be interested to see what the plan is for the backyards of the houses. It doesn't look like there's much of a backyard, and the temptation might be to put in some sort of a gully system. But I'm kind of concerned that the homeowners may end up filling in that swale just to make their yards level. Are we thinking maybe field inlets?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an option. If that's something that the town is definitely interested in seeing, we could certainly incorporate that when we get into the design stage. I appreciate knowing that ahead of time.
And so the developer would be willing to do field inlets with the associated piping to direct the runoff towards the pond?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
All right. You've addressed one of my concerns on that, so appreciate that. I'm good. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I don't just want to address the other comments that we've received. I think Mr. Martin and I were able to meet the neighbors, which was a great conversation discussing what was going on. And, you know, again, I believe that they're much more in agreement. I believe a lot of the concerns have been addressed. Mr. Ketchum wrote an email, which I know we responded to, and the only thing I guess I wanted to kind of quantify is I'm not sure that everything that he's asking for, I want to be able to be very clear and upfront. I'm not sure everything that he's asking for can be maintained is what I want to be able to point out. Mr. Ketchum's not here, right? Oh, I'm sorry. So I didn't catch your that. Forgive me for not remembering your last name from when we met. There was a couple of people, so I was lost with the group. The 25-foot buffer would leave us, so we definitely have the 20 or 25-foot buffer in there. But what I believe we're also is asked for is a berm on top of that. And I'm just not sure that the berm and the buffer is going to be something that's, you know, what, even as Mr. McIntyre pointed out, even a backyard swale would be hard to maintain in this small space. The 25-foot buffer area, 20 to 25 feet that's there, only leaves about 10 or so, or 15 feet between the vegetated buffer and the back of the building. I'm not sure that we're going to get a berm in there too. So I wanted them to be clear that I don't, and if the vegetation is there, or maybe we can just infill the existing vegetation with other plants that would help to beef up that vegetation instead of the swale. If that would be something, I'm getting some head nodding, but I just wanted to make sure we were clear with, I don't think we could get both simultaneously in there. Does that make sense?
It does.
8 pounds in a 5-pound bag, so to speak. The only thing I wanted to bring up was the other letter from Corey Brown on the west side. He actually stated that he's in favor of the project, but would like to see a vinyl fence, a privacy fence going down the road line. He's a neighbor to the west. So he would like to see a fence going down. I was wondering if that was going to be something that was okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely provide a fence along that side of the road. That's not an issue.
Okay, and I think the drainage concern that he had is being addressed because, again, from Mr. McIntyre's comments, I believe this thing is draining south and east, and we're not putting any more water to that side, which was to that concept. So I think everything else from the neighbors has been addressed. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. I think Chris has got everything pretty much settled with that. So I do not have any more comments. I think this was a much better plan
Great.
for that.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Thank you.
Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I think this revised plan is acceptable, and as it moves forward, though, of course, we'll need to see more detail as to the design, the colors, and the landscaping. And Chris covered my question about the owner of 1819 Jefferson Road in terms of the drainage issue and whether or not you as the developer are obligated to put up a fence, or would not landscaping just be sufficient border between the properties? But those were my issues, and I'm pleased with the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I too think that this is an improvement. However, with it just being a discussion item, I'll kind of defer to Mr. Martin because he's the pro here. And it seems like you're pretty good with this.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I definitely like this layout much better than the last. I just think we're crunching too much into this small area. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Well, I think I just want to mention my comment. I think I want to thank you for listening to the neighbors, listening to us. I think this is a much better plan as well. You've addressed the main concerns that we had, and I think there may just be a few things to work out once your final plan comes back. But I just want to say thank you very much for your dedication and your diligence in coming up with something that it appears most of the neighbors are mostly satisfied with. I know we're not going to satisfy everybody all the time, but I think this is vastly improved from what we saw a month or so ago. So thank you very much for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
do you mind
Mr.
if I make
Martin.
a few comments?
Yes, Mr. Martin, of course.
Matt, upon reviewing the plans, I did have some questions or some things to think about. For example, right now you show a 64-foot setback or front setback from Jefferson Road. Because this is a 278, do you think it would be possible to reduce that setback and move, all those 4 buildings a little bit further to the north? And I think the reason for that is I think we could save a little more buffer, at the southern end, or some more trees at the southern end.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
All right. Number 2, we haven't really talked about, the 278 and how that's going to be set up. But obviously we were thinking conservation easements that would go along the eastern property line, and then of course along the southern property line, to prevent any of the trees to be removed in the future by any of the future homeowners. But we can talk about that a little more in detail. I did notice the open space is a lot 5. Is that going to be by the HOA?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure, not being the attorney type, I'm not quite sure which way is how it's better doing it. If it's better to each property shares a portion of the roadway,
Right.
or if it's better to have it on its own lot its own entity that each of the homeowners pay into as part of the HOA. I think, personally, I think it's better for the roadway and the pond and turnaround area to be on its own lot. I think that's a cleaner way to do it, but we'll get into that a little bit more in detail as we move forward.
Yeah, so when you get into future plans, just make sure that's clearly identified on the drawings. And then the last thing I had is on that 20-foot buffer. Obviously, we'd love to see that increase the 25 feet if you can, with the understanding that they still have to have some type of backyard. So I don't know if maybe reducing the front setback from 35 to 30 would gain you a little more distance. But with the understanding, I know you have to have at least 2 cars parked back to back in the driveway and still be off the road. So again, if you could just take a look at that. I just haven't been out there. That 20 feet isn't as much as you think. There are some areas where it's, there's some brush and some other trees that we, certainly like to save if we can. But in some areas it is pretty sparse. So the last item I'd like to talk about is certainly if there are areas that are thin, would the developer be agreeable to putting some type of infill? Maybe some like a pine or a spruce tree or something like that.
Yeah, I don't see why that would be an issue. I mean, those are fairly economical trees to put in, so I don't think that'd be an issue. One of the things, like you guys are all aware of, it's going to be tight back there, even with a 20-foot buffer, with putting stormwater drainage and
right,
which is really addressing a lot of issues that some of the neighbors have. So, we'll do the best we can to maintain what we can back there. But it also needs to be a decent place for the folks that are
Sure.
living there to enjoy too. So, but yeah, we'll make sure we take every effort possible to try to minimize this development area.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, one more
Yes, Mr.
comment.
Rucker.
Mr. Martin just brought up another thing in my question that I had. Matt, is there any chance you could kind of silhouette the existing homes on the next set of plans that come in?
Yes.
Okay, it might be a little good to gauge where they sit, especially facade to Jefferson and et cetera. So that might help that as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else, members of the board? Mr. Mastrella?
Mr. Martin touched on this, but for it to be a 278, you're going to have to demonstrate some sort of public benefit, and you don't have to do that tonight. Just keep it in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Mastrella. Okay, gentlemen, I guess we're all set. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, next item is a discussion item as well. Marlwood Partners LLC. Planning Board to discuss with the applicant whether approval conditions for the outdoor truck parking area for company-owned trucks have been complied with. The property is located adjacent to 39 Commerce Drive in the commercial B1 zone district with a mixed-use redevelopment area overlay. And who's here representing the applicant, please?
Good evening. This is Meena Mari.
Anina, good
Hi.
evening. Now the floor is yours if you would like to speak.
Yes, as of those planning board condition, one of them was to get a letter or a permit from DEC indicating the approval. And I reached out to DEC. However, they didn't send me a letter, but they sent me on an email. They indicated that they approve our trucking parking there, which I sent it this morning to Amy. And also the third was a letter from DEC saying that this project site is located within a sensitive geological area, to get a letter from OPRHP regarding potential impacts, which also I got the letter, and I also sent it this morning to Amy to send it to the engineering department. and one of the, everything else, we've made up with the, Mr. Chris Martin. We went over the site plan, discussed everything that we need to do at the property. One of them was planting a tree. We haven't done it. On the 6th, I'm sorry, June 7th, I find Mr. Chris Martin, he told me that they signed off the site plan. So we're good to go. And we haven't, since then, we haven't got a chance to go to the property and plant those trees because we reached out to our architect, the GRH, Mr. Riza, to make sure what kind of trees he would suggest us to plant there. So he hasn't got back with us yet. He's been busy. And I believe that's the only thing left to do as a condition of planning board.
Thank you. Yeah, we did get copies of those documents you sent today, so thank you for doing that. I will ask more, excuse me, does anybody have a comment or a question for Nina at this point?
I got a couple questions.
Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
There were 5 conditions that we had stipulated, Chris.
Correct.
Number 1 was that they address all outstanding comments from the Director of Engineering and Planning. Was that satisfied?
Yes.
Okay.
I think one question that Mr. Eckert had, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's going to ask about the property line, if that's been delineated. Is that correct, Mr. Eckert?
I was going to give an update per our conversation,
Oh,
just so
all right.
that if that was one of the items. So if you want to go through your items, that'd be great. And
So that's, number 1 is complete.
In my mind, yes.
Then the special use permit, was that obtained?
Yes.
So, and they provided the documents for 2 and 3,
Correct?
and they're here for 5, so it looks like they've addressed all conditions. Is that correct?
Yes.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Mr. Eckert.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to give an update too. I requested that the owner go out and mark the property line. I didn't require it to be completely pinned and surveyed as long as the paint was down and we could give an idea. My understanding between the DEC literature and the conversation correspondence through there, that there was to be no work on the eastern property. So the paint line helped me to understand, what was which property, because there was pavement through both. That was done. I went out and looked at that, and there initially was disturbance on the eastern property. We've discussed that. That won't occur again, and I don't even know if the DEC wants it removed now that it's been done. I don't know where they sit with it, but the paint mark helped us to understand, will help us to understand and oversee it as a construction aspect now, where they're allowed to do work.
Very good.
So that was done.
Well, good. Nina, it sounds like you've done everything. Any other board members like to make a comment or a question? Mr. Page?
I just had one question regarding the DEC approval. I see that they have to come on the site and drill have bores for samples and things like that. And they talked about converting monitor wells to flush mounts. But at the end, they said documentation of the surveyed wells will need to be provided back to the department. Does that have to, this is for Chris, Nina, does that have to take place before they can start construction or?
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Page, that the wells are identified on the drawings.
Yes.
And the ones that have to be adjusted in height are also noted.
So that has to take place first before?
It can be done through construction.
Yeah, it'll be done during the construction
Okay,
process.
thank you. That was my only question, Mr.
I think it
Chairman.
was also just stipulated they wanted to be able, they couldn't cut them off or not have them accessible
Correct.
through construction, I think so.
Thank
That's
you.
how I read that. Is that right, Chris?
That's how I would take it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
Very
Thank you
good.
very much. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Mr. List, anything, sir?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Mr. Borkowski? Mrs. Brill?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Mastrella? And Mr. Martin, anything, sir?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Nina, thank you very much. We appreciate your cooperation throughout this process, okay?
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you too.
Okay, next item, discussion item, Frontier Car Wash. Planning Board to discuss a proposed 4,800 square foot car wash for Town Center Plaza for the purpose of supplying comments to the Town Board for the special use permit application. While the parcel is pending a re-subdivision, currently it is part of 2199 East Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zoned district. The address will be 2205 East Henrietta Road once the re-subdivision is complete. Who's here representing the applicant, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Ed Martin from Land Tech. Are you able to hear me okay?
A little bit soft. It was Ed, right?
It's Ed. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I also have Paul White. The applicant is online also in the event that you have any questions that are better answered by him. I believe the board is familiar with this application, and as you mentioned, we're just here somewhat informally tonight asking for some feedback to be shared with the town board for a special permit to be considered at their June 30th meeting. We would like to take advantage of the time to kind of flush any bears out of the woods, so to speak, so that we can have everything addressed in time.
And I'm sorry, you're really coming across a little bit garbled, and your volume is escalating and decreasing a little bit.
Let's try this. How's that? Is that better?
That sounds much better. Thank you.
Excellent. So we're scheduled to meet with the town board on June 30th for a special use permit. So we're going to ask for your feedback to be shared with the town board. And also we'd like to use this time to flush any bears out of the woods that would affect the July 20th planning board decision. We have shared samples with the engineering department. I trust that they've been shared with you, as well as colored renderings. In talks with staff, we have begun studies on the noise levels for the vacuums, and that data has been shared with staff. Just for reference, 20 feet from the vacuum, the readings are 59, and conversational speech is 60. So it shows that these are pretty quiet vacuums. There is a question about the blowers, and we're working on getting the data for that. We'll have that well in advance of the July 20th meeting. As I said, we have shared renderings with the board, and I trust you got an opportunity to review our submitted plans, and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. I will begin tonight with Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
This is, the first time we're seeing this, so this is a good plan. I know we've met with them in person. We've met with the developer, or the owner, I should say, on this project. The only two things that come up in my head right now, maybe a little more discussion, might unearth a couple more. What town board will probably require this to, or ask, what is the potential hours of operation for this building?
So right now we're targeting hours. First of all, thank you for taking time to meet with us tonight. And can you hear me okay? This is Paul White from Frontier Car Wash.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name?
My name is Paul White. I am representing the ownership group for Frontier Car Wash.
Thank you.
Our proposed hours of operation would be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That would be our standard for holidays. We would have abbreviated hours.
Okay. It might have something with the noise. I know we're close to residential on the east side. There is commercial both sides of East Henrietta, right, Chris?
Yeah,
So
there's on the east side is commercial B1, but there are some single-family residents within the vicinity of the project.
Right, okay. The only other comment I had was really kind of on the elevation. And do we have, I don't know if I picked it up quickly in the beginning, what is the elevation of this proposal? What's that facade that I saw? Looks like the two towers, north and south towers. What are the heights that are proposed on those?
27 feet, 3.5 inches.
What zoning is that? I mean, this is looking pretty tall and proud being that close.
In industrial, commercial, I want to say it's 40 feet.
So they're within the code.
That's correct.
Okay, it just looks like it's going to stand proud that close to the road.
Yeah, my concern.
There's nothing else that tall around there.
Yeah, the plaza itself, I don't think is that tall.
No.
Or close to it.
Paul, do you know the height of the plaza?
I don't, but I can find that out.
Yeah, and that's okay. I guess that's not really, if you're within code, I'm not going to belabor too much. I just think it's going to be, there isn't anything else around there that helps this to blend in height-wise.
Well, our intention is certainly to have it fit well in the plaza and in the community. So let me,
Are
let
those
me
two
look at the
towers
height of that plaza.
part of the operations, or are they HVAC plenums or something?
Nope, they're
Just facade.
just facade.
Okay. Well, then I'll, again, I don't want to ask you to do something that's against code, but that's might be another question for the board that they might take a look at, is how that fits and blends in. Everything else is an existing parking lot. So this is, to me, a use of, for lack of, unfortunately, a better term, a little bit of a dead parking lot. So I see a benefit to that. If we can deal with the noise and size of it, I think I think we have a great fit. So I wasn't able to see too much else in a preliminary review, sir, on for the paperwork I have, any other comments that I have. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Chair will recognize Mr. List.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
I'm very happy to see this, welcome this project to what I think is it's a nice plaza, but that is a dead zone in the center of that parking lot.
Yeah.
And you answered the question about the hours of operation that I had. Will it be maintained while it's open? Is there going to be employees there is it just going to be, is it self-service, or is it?
There will be a minimum of 2 and usually 3 or 4 employees on site during the hours of operations, just depending on, the time of day and how busy it is. But there will be a manager there 40 hours a week, and there will be other staff there for all of the hours of operation.
Are there any thoughts down the road of like as a competitor like Delta Sonic does detailing? Is that on the drawing board in the future, or not?
That's really not part of our thought process at this point. We just want to be, 120-foot car wash tunnel with some vacuums. We feel like that'd be a really good use of that parking lot and create some additional green space. The density of residential around there should make it very attractive to the residents to have a local car wash. But no, we're not considering at this time any sort of full service detailing, oil change, any of that stuff.
Well, I really welcome the project. I look forward to seeing more details as you go forward. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I concur with Mr. List. I think this is a nice addition, and Mr. Eckert as well. I find it ironic that this is called Frontier Car Wash, because you're putting in what I would say has been the Wild West forever. It's like a dust bowl there. So is that an actual brand? Is Frontier like a national thing, or is this just here?
No, we are Frontier Communities. We own apartment communities around Monroe County, and we're also Frontier Management of New York is our property management company. We currently own the plaza, and so we continued that Frontier brand onto this car wash, but it is not a franchise or anything else that's nationally recognized.
Wow, that's interesting, because I picture tumbleweeds going through there, so your name is very appropriate. I like this. I like this plan, because it's going to make that parking lot not have the tumbleweeds anymore. Thank you.
Yeah, it was either that or Suburban Car Wash, but we didn't want to revert back to the old Suburban Plaza name.
Good idea.
Good idea.
Good thinking. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the design of the building is really nice. Anything to improve upon the improvements that have been made on the old Suburban are welcome. So be interesting to see the flow of traffic and how everything is going to work. I was surprised when I first read that this was proposed in the middle of the parking lot, but it is a beautiful building, and I think it is definitely going to make an improvement over there.
Yeah, I don't think traffic is going to be a major concern with the traffic light entering the plaza, and also from the southbound lane, there's entrance into the parking lot there as well. We think it's going to be a really good addition to the plaza and to the community.
So the building is, let's see here. So from East Henrietta Road, going to the west, the length of the building goes east-west. I initially thought it was sideways, if you will. So I thought that facade with the name on it facing East Henrietta Road, which made sense to me. Has that been looked at all?
Our initial rendering did have it running parallel to East Henrietta Road, and the feedback we got back in our initial discussions from the board was they thought that preserving those parking spaces in front of the DMV was more critical. So we changed the orientation to be perpendicular to East Henrietta Road, which I think is going to be a good fit from a traffic flow and preserving some of those parking spaces in front of the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Interesting. And you would have, based on the layout of it and being centered and everything, you would have to remove parking in front of the DEC, because that is very important. I definitely get that.
If we change the orientation of the building to be parallel with East Henrietta Road, we would lose that parking because you need adequate entrance and egress to the tunnel.
What kind of signage is going to be? There
Well, we're going to handle the signage with a separate permit application, but at this point, the signage that we've shown on the rendering is the direction that we're intending to go. There's also a monument sign out in front of the plaza that we would, put the name of the car wash on as well.
And forgive me, I do see that on the number 3 east elevation. Thank you. All set.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can interject on Mrs. Brill's comment, when the developer met with Mr. Schultz, Mr. Martin, and myself, we looked at a couple different orientations. It wasn't he said the town board, and it was the 3 of us. So I wanted to make that kind of clear. We also looked at, he asked about moving it south to really what would be more of an open parking lot. But apparently there's a no blockage disclosure in their lease to AutoZone. So that's forbid them from putting that in front of the AutoZone. They have a no blockage agreement or some sort of language in their deed or in their mortgage rent, whatever you want to call it. I'm losing my verbiage. So we went back to this location in a perpendicular kind of aspect to help save that the parking that is the only place that is parking in that parking lot is the place that they were trying to take out.
The
so
only option.
That's what we seemed to think. That's what we went around with them a couple of times. So they were prudent to come in and discuss that with us ahead of time. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that information about AutoZone is very important.
Yeah, we thought it would have been better south. The light's right there. The parking lot's wide open. I don't ever see any cars there.
No, move it away.
As did we. We would like to use that acre of the parking lot for this purpose as well, but we do have a no build zone in our lease with AutoZone.
Thank you.
Most of the AutoZones are much closer to the road where they get more recognition from traffic, so they mandated that we don't build there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I've just got one question. I'm not seeing it real well on these drawings, and maybe it's not here. But what type of landscaping do you propose for this? I mean, I don't see any grassy areas, right? And I did see a tree in here. Can you just briefly describe for me what natural features you might have around the site, if any?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. To the north of the proposed building, we're going to be putting in a lawn area, kind of separating the car wash operation from the parking lot for the DMV. And in there, I believe there's 2, 4, 6, 8 proposed tree plantings. So when all is said and done, we have a significant increase in green space going in. We do have some banked parking along East Henrietta Road, but don't anticipate needing those. But good planning suggests that we kind of put that in there now, just in case something happens in the future.
Yep. Okay, I see that now. Yep. Very good. Well, that'll be nice. This is going to be a good project. Again, as everybody said, that's kind of a wasteland right now, and it'll be nice to have some activity there. So, Mr. Page. Okay, one moment, Mr. Page.
This might not be possible, but I was wondering if you could have the discharge area face west instead of east. Have the cars enter from the east side and exit the west side. Takes care of all the noise issues you'd ever have.
The issue with that becomes staging. So you'll notice the 3 pay stations to the north of the existing of the proposed building. we need an area to queue the cars up and stage the cars. And we thought about that, but we didn't know how we would be able to stage them without having them in the traffic lane.
Okay, I knew there'd be a reason, but that was, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned. And Chris, you don't foresee any issues with stormwater discharge? I mean, this is a significant amount of water going to be added to the system.
Yeah, I mean, right now, most of the site is paved and it's impervious. And certainly with the increase in the lawn areas, I think you'll see probably a reduction in the amount of runoff off the site. As a side note, I think we would like to see some plantings around the building, you know, some bushes and things like that to dress the building up a little bit. And I did have one comment, and if it's okay for me to interrupt you, Mr. Page, there's a private drive that goes to the, you know, off the back of the building to the, not this building, but the overall plaza. I know that a lot of the potholes have been replaced or repaired rather, but are there any plans to maybe mill and resurface that area so it's a little more permanent than the temporary potholes?
Yeah, we are on the schedule with our paving contractor within the next 2 weeks. They're supposed to put 2 inches of top back there. So the patching of those holes was phase 1 of repairing that road. And absolutely that's on our agenda. We've had some communications with folks about that. And, you know, we intended to have it done prior to now, but we're doing the best we can with our paving contractor.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Chris, I used the wrong term. I was concerned about the wastewater, the amount of wastewater from the car wash, not stormwater. I'm sorry, Mr. Page, but yes, as part of this project, they're going to have to put an oil separator in. And that part of that oil separator will take care of all the, whatever comes out of from the car wash. And the amount's not a problem, the increased amount.
Probably reclamation too, didn't do they require reclamation?
It's not required. We haven't seen it on the plans. I don't know if that's something that they're going to do internally or not, but you know, certainly it's welcomed. But again, it's up to the applicant whether they want to do that or not.
Ed, do you know if you had any communication on reclamation for this? You're muted, Ed.
I'm not familiar with any need for the reclamation. Paul, do you know if there's any plans to reclaim any of the water?
We've had conversations about reclaiming water. You know, we may reclaim a portion of it, but these full reclamation car washes don't function as well. So we do intend to reclaim a portion of the water, but certainly not all of it.
Thank you.
Sorry, they're calling out 1,000-gallon oil separator grit collector. Is that going to be enough? Have you gotten the calculations?
We haven't, again, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning, we haven't seen the calculations yet, but I'm sure that Mr. Martin will provide those to us before we sign off on the drawings.
We will, and we're familiar with car washes. We did this down on at the used car dealership we did for Simonetti's a few years ago, so we're familiar with that.
Good project. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. McIntyre. More questions. Ed, you called out lighting on one of your detail sheets. You're showing wall pack lighting. Where's that wall pack lighting going to be used? North, south, east, or west, or all around the building?
I see primarily on the south side of the building and on the east side and the west side at the entrance and exit. I suppose we don't show any along the north side, but we do have a note in the file to talk to Paul about adding some of that, but it's all very building specific, just isolated to our area of operation. We're not going to turn into a Walmart parking lot or anything like that.
Can we use downlighting on at least the east side?
Absolutely, and I think the fixture we spec'd is already shielded. It is.
Goes
Yep.
down with not full downlight shading, shielding.
So you're talking about more of like a gooseneck type of light?
Full cutoff.
Yeah. Okay.
At least on the east side.
Yeah, we don't want those.
Easy enough.
And maybe I'm being a little over cautious, but on the second story facade, particularly coming from the south, looking at the south elevation, is there any kind of a tinning on those windows to try to reduce the glare of the sun? It seems like sun gets to a certain height, it's going to be a perfect angle.
Yeah, those aren't going to be glass windows. That's going to be a textured, I believe, EFIS product. Ed, is that what we call it?
Yes. Yep.
It reduces glare?
It's kind of a stucco type of material. It's not glass.
Oh, that's not glass. It's
correct.
They appear to be glass in the rendering, but they're not. They're just decorative stucco. We've considered doing some lighting up there, but again, that would only be during hours of operations as well.
Okay. It's even better.
If I could ask a question, one of you gentlemen mentioned you're scheduled to meet with the town board for the special use permit. For my notes, can you reiterate the date of that, please?
June 30th.
Thank you.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All set, Mr. McIntyre. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again.
Fantastic.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Okay, last item this evening, another discussion item, Lehigh mixed-use apartments. We're to discuss a reduction of the required transitional buffer from 100 feet to 50.5 feet on the southwest corner of the parcel located at 84 Lehigh Station Road in an industrial zone district with a mixed-use employment center overlay. Who's here representing the applicant, please?
My name is Joshua Saxton. I'm a civil engineer at Passrow Associates.
Hi, Joshua.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yep. So as I'm sure you guys are aware, a couple meetings ago, we had approval for this project. One of the main discussion items of that meeting was the fire access lane. The original plan, we had it kind of parallel to the entrance to the site. And I know the fire marshal and the board wanted that moved specifically onto East River Road. Since that meeting, we have moved the road to East River Road, but that has caused the need to get a waiver for the transitional buffer between the single family house located in the southwestern corner of the site and to the road. So we're at this meeting asking for that waiver for the transitional buffer.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, do you have any comments regarding this at all?
The only thing I'd like to add, Mr. Chairman, is, and I think we talked about this at the last meeting, is that the single-family home that is in close proximity to the fire access is also owned by James Riverview, the same owner that owns the land where these apartments are going to be constructed. So I don't know if he's renting it or what the status is, but they are the owners of that lot.
Chris, it's currently rented to RIT students.
Okay.
Aside from that, no concerns with this reduction from your office?
No, we haven't heard anything from obviously the students or anything else. It's, again, it was one of those unique situations where, the fire marshal wanted the access road in a different location because it's a terrain. This is really the best location for it. But obviously, it's now the need for a transitional buffer.
Mr. Mistrella, anything from your chair, sir? No? Okay. Any questions from the board?
I just have one thing.
Yes, Mr. Borkowski.
Touched. I was worried about the property, but it seems where this is, I'm just kind of looking at a satellite and comparing it to the site plan you have here. And it seems like you're trying to take that road through places that aren't going to take down many trees. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. And
out there.
yeah. And it's mainly also following the grade as close as possible, trying to limit the amount of, cut and fill, because in that area, it is very steep. If you've driven down that section of East River Road, it's a very steep road. So trying to get the road to connect, it's kind of the only place it could be to make it work with the grade in the area.
Okay. I just want to make sure if we grant the reduction, we're not taking down, 100-foot trees, but it looks like it's pretty clear of those.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Joshua, I just want to tell you that you have the best headset anyone else we have ever had come to this.
Yeah,
We
it's got,
find out the make and model of your headset because you sound like you're in this room with us.
yeah, it's got to be professional. It's like I'm almost in the room.
No, it is truly noticeable. We appreciate that.
Gamer headset there, Josh? Your gamer?
It's for both. It's for, I do a little music stuff too. So also recording with that. So,
It's excellent.
For discussion, I'm sorry, Mr. Page, go ahead.
But again, this road is only going to be used in
Yeah.
case of an extreme emergency with fire apparatus. If it's used one time in 10 years, it might be, so it's not going to be constant.
No, that's what I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that too, that this is
Yeah.
just an emergency use application only, so.
yeah, it'll be gated also at the entrance. So no one will be able to drive up from East River Road into the site. So.
Perfect.
And if I'm not mistaken, Joshua, did the Monroe County Department of Transportation verbally agree for the entrance location, approximately?
Yeah. When we first had this, the kind of location, we sent it to you, Chris, and also DOT, and they responded in the same day. They said, as long as it's emergency access, they don't see any problem with it.
Secondary, only if the primary is closed off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion, or Chair will make a motion to approve the reduction of the transitional buffer from 100 feet to 50.5 feet. Do we have a sufficient second?
Second.
Mr. Page, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. You've got your reduction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joshua.
But not always that easy, Josh, just to give you.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
I know. Okay. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, everybody.
Any chance we could redact the comments on Mr. Burkowski's verbiage to Mr. Martin in the form of pro?
Pro was used. I think that's in the record, if I'm not mistaken, Heather.
I think parliamentary procedure, you have to make a motion to strike it.
It's 100% going to be transcribed and part of the record.
Very good.
And I would like that bolded too, Heather, if that's okay. Okay.
On a plaque.
Exactly.
I wish I had a picture of Chris's face when I said it too. He was like beaming.
You made my day, Mr. Bukowski.
You're welcome.
Jim, 846 motion?
Motion to adjourn it.
Got it.
8:45. Yep.
And just for those who, I'm sorry, just a side note, we do have fireworks at 9:15.